To the second half of our event, and for this part I want to invite Enrique to tell us more about how they make strategic decisions at Molly. So take it away.
Hello. Yeah. Can you guys all hear me clear? My voice tends to be quite low, so if you cannot hear, please just do something and I will try to speak up. Just to get to know a little bit my audience, how many of you are engineers? How many of you are maybe product? Not that many. Managers? Product manager, whatever the manager attached to it. Anything else? Okay, so basically majority engineer. Well, so my name is Henrique. I work for Molly. I'm an engineer. Unfortunately, I have a manager attached to it. So I'm an engineering manager at the onboarding domain. What it means is we are responsible to onboard every single merchant. Basically, if you are opening a web shop, you want to have an account at Molly, we have to onboard you. For the ones who doesn't know Molly, we are about 800 employees. The company exists for about 20 years, actually. 20 years, we just celebrated the 20 years anniversary. Yeah, we onboard 5,000 people a month, so from the point of view of load, there's not really a lot. But of course, if 5,000 every month, we serve about 220,000 customers, merchants 250,000, so let's say the payment processing is quite big. I think Molly is very famous for being a company that is a bit like a payment provider, right? So you can open your website and you can select payments. But this year we changed a bit. Our values actually is about be love people and be authentic. So if you actually want to use Molly, we're not going to force your content on you. If you dislike it, you are always free to leave. But our vision now is to eliminate financial bureaucracy. So not only payments, but anything to POS, anything to bank accounts, and it's going to grow. So we are trying to make money management effortless for every business in Europe. That's our market. We focus very much on small merchants, medium merchants, no big merchants. So this is basically, what we do. I think the principles is quite interesting because I think if you don't understand our principles, it's quite hard to follow what I'm about to explain how we work. But we like to embrace change. We definitely like to get things done today. Make our customers proud, bold ownership, humble execution, diverse and unite, and speak up. So today I'm going to try to say why we chose this live mode for product development. That's how we actually like to work. I don't know if many of you know what a live mode is, but it's this thing that nobody really can tell what it is. Science says a fungi, they say it's not a fungi, and people say it's a vegetable, it's not a vegetable, but nobody really knows what it is. But there's a classification there that I just don't know to remember the name. But if you do walk in the woods, you potentially have seen this before. They basically eat dead woods and plants and everything. And scientists was quite intrigued by this slime mode. So they basically took them to the lab, studied them, their shape, their forms. And today I'm going to talk to you about two types, there is a bunch of them. And the one that is super interesting for me, I really like this one, cellular slime mode. And why is this one interesting? Is that when they are basically a lot of resources, when there is basically a bunch of food, they compete with each other. And they are just constantly eating everything. But something very interesting happened when food is no longer abundant. So basically now they are hungry, they are becoming, let's say, dying. Then one of them basically say, hey, I actually hungry, I'm dying. And then he sends like a signal, and all the other slime modes basically get together. And it's not like they become like a swarm or ants and bees. They actually literally become one cell, one nuclei. And that way they can actually survive if eventually they find food. And the other one is this plasmodial slime mode. This one tends to be the famous slime mode. If you guys don't know, this is the famous one. And the interesting thing about this one is that scientists actually did a lot of research. There is actually a completely field on, like, say, nature and engineering. And what they did is they took this labyrinth and they put, let's say, food here. So basically, there's two big yellows oatmeal. And they spread this slime mold around this labyrinth. And what happens, of course, is that this line mode goes around, try every potential path. So basically this game that we do as a kid. And then they try to optimize, and in the end they find the best optimal path, and it kills everything else. So basically, any path that doesn't lead to the food or is not optimal enough, it basically stops investing in it. And then the scientists thought like, wow, that is actually quite interesting. How can we find different ways to apply this line mode for something that is useful to us? And then they made another experiment, and this experiment was more useful. So they took the Tokyo metro system, so the picture in the left, the main center, Tokyo Central, let's put it like that, is the big oatmeal, and all the other ones are the stations, the small ones. And they put this line mode. And this line mode actually found it faster, cheaper, and more optimal the metro station than we did as human beings, right? Like calculating, estimating everything, and spending a lot of time. And then you might be thinking like, okay, great, but these line modes, they are interesting because they don't have the memory. They do not have a brain. They are not smart. They just keep trying, they just keep trying, they just keep doing, and that goes on and on. But the thing is, we are not line modes. And I'm asking, like, that's how we work. And the thing is, we do have a brain, and we actually do not have all the time in the world, unfortunately. But having a brain is actually also has a lot of downsides. And I'm gonna take one of you in front of me as a guinea pig for this follow-up questions. I hope you guys don't mind. But I'm gonna test your brain. So, does mammals and dinosaurs, they coexisted? True or false? So you think it's true? Next question. Does camel stores waters in their humps? True or false? I think it's false. Wow, his brain's pretty good. He actually got all the answers correct. I want you to think about how did you reach your answers. Guessing, exactly. That's a very good word. So now let's try this different. I want you to answer the next question, and I want you to tell me how certain are you of your answer. So which historical figure was born first, and how certain are you? And how certain are you? Okay. And this one, which one was born first and how certain are you? All right. So the first one you got it wrong and the second one you got it right. But the most important question is, did you think differently? Do you think? Okay. Now let's do one last. You don't have to suffer for much longer. Now I want you to bet your salary. I don't know from that. His salary is in the line now. Is your money on this? Which country had more people in 2020? Your salary is in the line. 1 tablespoon of oil has more calories than a tablespoon of butter. Yeah, you are not bad when you're betting. So the point of this, and I don't know if you guys noticed, right? But the first question he answered under 2 seconds. True, false, like didn't matter, right? And he said guessing, like because this is literally what happened. And the second question, when you ask him, like, okay, how certain are you? It took like 20 seconds each question to basically think about it. If that question was not there, like, hey, how certain are you? Suddenly, this triggers your brain to just do something else. Like, okay, apparently I have to think about where is this answer coming from? Do I know where this is coming from? And you start calculating. And it's the same what happens when we talk about bet. Every time you talk about bet, it automatically goes like, wait a minute, how much is this? How is it going to cost? And am I certain about this? And I think this is the important equation. And that's why having a brain is complicated, because we have bias, we have shortcuts, and we try to avoid that. And the other part is the hard part with time. Unfortunately, we all wish to have endless time, but unfortunately we do not. And we do not have time to test everything, right? So we are all software engineers, we have a lot of ideas, we have a lot of ambitions as a company as well. And we wish we could just do like this line mode, just shoot in every direction and hope one day like, oh, those are bad, and then kick it off. So because of that, we use experience, right? So you have engineering managers, senior engineering managers, senior product managers, CPO, CTO, VP of whatever, and they all have like a bunch of decisions that they learned from the past, and they just say like, man, we don't need to test anything. I know how to go from left to right, follow my direction, and it's going to be easy. I hope you guys know this doesn't work very well. So the question is, how do we get cheap bets versus expensive bets? Right? So now we're no longer talking about functionalities, we're no longer talking about requirements, we're talking about bets. We are betting in something and we hope we're going to work. And there is this woman, she wrote a book that is brilliant, I definitely recommend. And she talked about that most teams falls in the trap of testing a whole idea. Whole idea testing takes a lot of work and a lot of time, two things that we want to avoid in discovery. And basically, let's say when you say, I'm going to just test this, I'm going to do an A/B test. Well, we basically just build the functionality, so it's already too late, right? So it is already quite expensive. So I'm gonna question for all of you. You don't have to answer, I'm gonna give you 2 seconds to think about your best decision you made in your life. All right, I guess you guys already have it, so. How many of you have that the decision had a good outcome? So you are basically like everybody else, full of bias. So basically what it means is we tend to associate good decision to good outcome, bad decision to bad outcome. Well, of course, that's not the truth. I can give you an example. So let's say I made a bad decision. I drove drunk home and I hit my car. Bad decision. I don't think we're going to question that. Horrible outcome. I'm going to have to pay that problem. Let's say then you had a bad decision. I drank a lot, drove my car, made it home, and nothing happened. It's a luck outcome, even though I like to believe that I'm a great driver if I was drunk. I don't do that, guys. And let's say you actually had the good decision and an unluck outcome. This is what it is, right? You calculated, you measured it, you did everything. You didn't drink the whole night, you ordered the ball, you drove home, bam, you crashed your car. Has nothing to do with the fact that of your decision making. But of course, where we want to be is on this place, right? Having great decisions and great outcome. And that's what we are searching for. But we do have this tendency to believe that like, oh, if this decision is good, then we judge the outcome being bad, let's say, as correlated, but they are not. So our job here is trying to improve the decision quality, basically increase our chance of good outcome. That's the truth that we consider, right? Like our job is trying to learn to make sure that we are making the right decision with the information we have, and that way it will increase the chance, but we do not guarantee. We only guarantee best effort. So at Morley, it's quite a big company, as you guys heard. It's 800 people. I'm not going to generalize for the whole company. I work for the onboarding domain, we have payments domain, we have financial service domain. Every domain works different, but in our domain we work that way. And this is how we used to work before, let's say, we become slime modes with a brain. Is kind of a command and control model, right? We had our VPs, our seniors, and they would basically say, hey, this is our vision, this is the strategy we're going to take, this is our goals, and then we would sit together, and then the PMs would say, okay, this is going to be my team goal, based on that, this is going to be my other team goal, and they would ask me, the engineering manager, make sure that individual contributors has the correct goal aligned to the whole company, and that's how we used to do. That's not how I'm recommending you guys to do. And this is basically didn't work very well for us. I will try to elaborate a bit on this. But then of course we got the OKRs, right? Like we have always OKRs, and OKRs, they are amazing. So the OKRs was very much biased based on the experience of our managers, on the path that they took, and they would just say, we need to improve conversion. We need to go from 80% to 30% or 90% or whatever number it was. The thing is, we had a lot of teams, right? We had 7 teams on the onboarding domain alone. And we kind of got this. Like one team go left, one team go right. Even though we think we were going to the same place, we didn't because we all had different goals. And what was missing for us was this, a North Star, right? And some of you probably have heard about the North Star framework, that you can just have one direction. So we start thinking like, what if we do actually venture outside of our bias? What if you are actually wrong with the direction you say we should be, with the experience that you actually have? It's not because you worked for, let's say, ING, that is the same problem as Molly. ING had 45,000 people, Molly has 700, right? What if we actually don't have the full picture? What if the picture would be like this? Would it still make sense, the direction you took? And what if there is a bigger opportunity that we don't see it, because we didn't even know this other side of the map was actually there? And that's the opportunity. So what if the opportunity was even there? So we talked, we discussed, and we said, okay, how can we bring this back to life? So we did a little bit of change, and instead of having a command and control, we created like a mutual commitment of how we want to do things. So we still get a vision and a strategy from, of course, from the direction of the company, where they want to go, where they want to head, which products are going to become bigger and bigger. But when it comes to the domain, the goals became shared. So now instead of having teams focus on their own goals individually, and having like sometimes you had a need like, oh, I need help with this, and the other team, not my problem, man, my OKRs has nothing to do with yours, I'm going to focus on my problem. So we shift that, and we basically said, okay, the domain has a goal, I don't care who is going to do it, I don't care which team is going to work on it, but all the teams are going to be sharing the same. So he is trying to do a representation of what it looks like. So the team B, of course, took 40%, team A takes 6%, and the other teams take whatever, but in the end, our bonus is basically if we get the full goal. And then in the end, it became not about problems or features to solve, but which opportunities could we actually validate. There is a very famous product stack, it's called the decision stack, and that's more or less how we apply. So basically you could ask, hey, I have this vision, how do I achieve it? Well, with this strategy, but how do I do that? With this objective, how do I do that? Well, with this opportunity, how do I do that? Well, with this bet, how do I do that? Well, validating this way, right? So you can always do this, and you can reverse that. So let's say you are an engineer, you are basically deep in the trenches with the code, and you say, hey, I'm validating this. Well, why? Well, because this bet we believe is going to impact. Well, but why? Well, because we saw this opportunity, and we think it's going to be relevant. Why? Well, this is the objective that Molly has. Why? That was the strategy and the vision, right? You get the point? So you can basically link everything. And before we had quite a disconnect between what an engineer was doing and the goal of the company, and the goal of the company and what the teams were doing. This is a concrete example that we experienced last year about one of the teams that I work. So the top is the domain. The domain basically means like our senior leadership. And then of course the team is responsible for this part of the stack. So basically the vision was every user should have a successful first journey. So let's say you are from a country that is high risk for money, you are not allowed to basically transact. But then it doesn't mean that you should have a poor experience. We should be able to refuse you as quick as possible so you actually have a good experience, right? Like you're not like, oh my God, as I went to this company, put all my data, every 3 months they say, sorry, I'm not going to work with you, right? We did that. So with that vision, we had a strategy of focus on every unsuccessful journey. So we look, we check the data, everybody was actually quite unhappy with the journey that we had, and then we figured out, wow, maybe our objective is increase full PSC provided by 5%. I can understand it's quite on board in terms for people. But then our opportunity was bank account verification isn't performing, right? So if you sign up for Molly, you want to get paid eventually, so you want to put your bank account, but we need to make sure that your bank account is from the person who says who is. Otherwise there's money laundering and a bunch of other things. And our bets was, well, we have 3 bets. We can basically do selfie to make sure that we see who you are. We can say open banking, it's basically another APIs that all the banks are using nowadays. You can use identity wallets, so it's another type of product. And of course our validation is 6 weeks implementation of this in France and UK. So how can we start from taking inexpensive bets while expressing our beliefs, right? Because in the end, we still have bias, we still have belief, we still have, let's say, desire to say, I really think this is going to be the shit. And we just definitely need to do it. So the format we found is basically writing what we call a bet document, right? You can call it whatever. Some companies are going to say it's a PRD, some companies are going to say it's a requirement. We call it a bet document because it is a bet. We basically don't believe that this is for sure going to work. And who writes this bad document? Well, pretty much all the engineers, and together with product. We do not have QA, only engineers, product, data. So the team gets and designer, product designer. So together we write it, depends on the bet. The bet can be very heavily on improving the customer opportunity that we have. And sometimes it can be a modernization. We believe like, hey, if we actually do this tool is going to increase our performance and new features in the future, and it's also a bet. And in the bet we have, of course, objectives of successful metrics, urgency. Urgency basically means, I get it, it's important, but why now? Why not in 6 months, or why not in a year, right? And one thing that I think it confuses a lot of people is that we do not estimate, right? So basically we have what we do is we have an appetite. And what this appetite means is we have 6 weeks. And I will explain a bit more later on this. So we do say, what is our appetite for this bet? So imagine that you go to a casino and then you're going to say, hey, here's 3,000 euros. That's your appetite, right? You're not going to say, let's see, I'm estimating how much money I'm going to get based on 20,000. I'm just saying, my appetite is this. If you cross this, this is it. Take your loss. We also document our proposed solutions, what we think is going to happen, milestone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plan A, plan B, plan C, and all the risks and the assumptions we are making. And our main focus on this bet is this, right? Improve our decision quality, that I believe is going to increase our chance of a good outcome. Where what we actually want to become is this slime modes with a lot of experimentation, quite cheap, quite simple, quite fast, with a little bit of a brain that's basically not make the same mistakes and repeat. We are actually learning from what we're doing, so every bet we can apply these learns. And this is the part now that I'm going to try to explain how we actually do this, or how we actually bring this to life. So some of you might have heard of a company called Basecamp, right? Like we have the chatbots, and they wrote this book called Shape Up. So we actually got quite inspired by it because they solved quite a lot of the problems that we saw that we're going to have to solve it. And we basically, I could say, we use it pretty much the framework they do. So we work in the cycles of 6 weeks. So when the batch starts, we start on day 1. We are all working on this bet that we already solved for what we call a betting session. And this betting session normally happens here on the cooldown. So a day on the life of the engineer is, okay, he starts the first, let's assume that the bet has been approved. We said, okay, go for it. Then we have 6 weeks to try to bring this to life. And then during the 6 weeks, the product people, engineering managers, product designer, they are in this parallel track that we call basically in this cycle, and we are doing research. We are doing product discovery, we are analyzing what the other opportunities have, we are writing more bad documents. Sometimes we include engineers if they want to be involved. If they don't want to be involved, they are also not involved. But this two runs in parallel. After the 6 weeks, that's it, sharp. You lost your money or you made your money, we don't know, because in the end we're going to put the product live. But I want to emphasize that it doesn't mean that we don't go to production, right? We go to production every day, hundreds of times a day. We deploy every single day. We release, if we can release it to customers. If we cannot release to customers because the functionality is not good enough, we wait. But the 6 weeks is our appetite to have a full experience validated with a customer. Of course, sometimes it takes time, right? We only have 5,000 merchants a month, so this means to get a full sample size that is, let's say, validated, we need to take like 3 months, right? And then in that case, the experiment stops, feature flags, the experiment keep running, then we come back later on to check the results. If the results are positive, we can also bring this back to this whole betting session, and then we can decide to reinvest on making another iteration on it, or we say, actually, good enough, more conversion than we thought we'd get, or worse, and then we just drop it. And of course, we still have problems, right? We still have bugs, we still have incidents, we still have security patches, we still have all these things. This doesn't stop, but we have this in the cooldown. So in the end of every bad cycle, we get 2 weeks to basically fix everything, brief a little bit because it's quite intense. We are constantly iterating over the product that we are building. And in that 2 weeks, we are actually just, we could say fixing bugs. Yeah, and that's the part of the out of the cycle that we try to shape the bet, right? Is doing a lot of product discovery, a lot of opportunity mapping trees, and everything that I can show you here. So one of the things that we do a lot is user story mapping. So we don't really like the idea of having this 2D Jira backlog with a bunch of functionalities that we don't fully know where it comes from. And we basically draw the whole user journey. Every single bet we have, we make one. And then we basically say, okay, this is milestone 1, this is milestone 2, this is milestone 3. And we try to remove and try to make as lean as we possibly can. So basically try to descale the risk as early as possible on the process, rather than leaving to the end. We do a lot of what we call a product tree, or impact tree, so they have a lot of decision trees and everything. But this one is my favorite one, because here you can really see what, let's say, the domain leadership does. They set the 5-year vision, they set a goal. And what I really like about this is that the goal is for a person, for a persona, right? So let's say, you cannot just say, I have a goal to increase conversion. No, you have a goal to increase conversion for who, for which market, for when. It has to be very specific. And then in the end, we need to get a difference in customer outcome. That means the customer has to change the behavior. If the customer doesn't change the behavior, then it's actually quite irrelevant, right? So we have that written down, so you can see actually there on the left side, there is a goal, and there is 3 different personas. This is basically the markets that we work with. And then you go to these 2 sections, and this is basically what we call discovery and delivery. And this is the product team, right? They are responsible to do this part. Product designer, engineering manager, engineer, data people. And then we go from the problem. What is the problem this person is having? What is the job to be done here? And then we come up with a bunch of different validations we could do, right? So basically that's how Slime mode starts. Well, you can do A, you can do B, C, you can do C. And you cannot test all of them. So this is the time that you have a gut feeling, and you're going to try to prioritize based on what you know, what you learn, and everything. After that idea is validated, it becomes the solution. And then we say, okay, now let's go and talk about delivery. And that's what becomes what we normally call feature or user story or epic or whatever. And I tend to be quite, passionate about this, because when I joined Molly, what they said, oh yeah, I want a roadmap. And the roadmap was basically one straight line. And I don't know about you, but for me, a roadmap is several different possibilities to achieve a place, right? So if I say, hey, let's go from here to Rome, wow, we can go by boat, we can go by car, we can go by train. If the road is closed, we can go up, we can go south, right? And this is what it's supposed to be. So let's say, if I want to impact this goal, there is not only one way to do it. And I think that's a part of this line mode as well, right? You have to go and try several different things. And again, we were able to make the connection between, hey, I'm working this user story, why? And we could go back up to the tree, right? Like, so for us, that was very important to really integrate everybody. We have been doing this for about a year now, actually. So we did this first presentation that you guys see now in last year, somewhere in October. And then straight away, we did this whole process this year, and it has been quite amazing journey for us. And we did a few, at least I tried to summarize, talking to everybody around me, what was the learnings that we did. And I would say changing the language was key. The moment that we did this presentation, we had our CPO also in the room, we had a bunch of senior managers in the room, and by the way, this has been all done on our level, right? Let's say engineering manager, product people with the teams, bottom up. And the moment that we finished this presentation, every single word they said was, I would like, and then they would stop to do a bet about this, right? And then it became bet. And when you talk about bet, automatically you know there is no certainty of the results. You are literally betting. I don't need to explain bet. I'm pretty sure you guys also understand what it means. Another thing that we've been doing a lot is we mob, we pair a lot. And most of the teams in our domain work in a mob configuration. For those who doesn't know what mob is basically all the engineers and the designer working at the same time on the same problem in one single functionality or feature or task. And that allowed us to basically slow down, iterate quick, make sure that if I need a designer, the designer is there, not shared with different projects. If an engineer is basically helping another engineer, basically decisions move quite quick, right? You don't want to basically be in the position of like, oh yeah, I need to ask this question, but the designer is borrowed to another team and we don't know when he's going to be available, then your 6 weeks is basically go to space. Deliver as fast as possible and perfect later. This is, I think, is the hardest thing. We always tend to say like, oh no, this is not good enough. This is not the experience that our customers deserve. They deserve definitely better. And over and over again we go to this conversation, like, but what if we run out of money right now? Like, we just waste all of it? Oh, in that case, let's go, right? So I think it's quite hard to find this perfect spot of what the minimal lovable product is going to be. But for us, it is, I think it's a forever struggle. And everybody has a different threshold for this, by the way. Like our designers have a quite high one. Our engineers, some of them is like, come on man, you don't even need to change the color of this. Even a pixel perfect discussion, it happens. So that didn't change yet. Data, a lot of data. We rely a lot on data. Basically every type of data that you can think of it. Traces on the screen, we rely on A/B testing, we rely on conversions, we rely on how much they come back, which don't come back, we rely on survey results, we send them questionnaires on the dashboard. Another very funny problem is this, incremental versus iterative. And basically the main difference is that it's hard to figure out, am I incrementing or am I iterating? And even the word, like every single time I'm talking about this, I'm like, which one is who again? So basically incremental is taking something and breaking it down to smaller steps, and iterative is basically more experimental, right? So one way of thinking of it is, this is incremental. You know your problem, you just broke it down, now you just need to assemble it. This type of problem, it's less complicated, less complex, let's go like this. And then you have iterative, right? You're trying to make a Mona Lisa. You never know when you're done. You never know when the last stroke is. And you can be doing that forever. You can be perfecting it forever. And this tends to be the most questions we have during those betting sessions that we organize. Hey, is this just an increment? Is it just like something that is very easy? And the part that I mentioned about the appetite is that some people ask us like, okay, but you are estimating, right? Because you're saying that it's going to take 6 weeks. Or like, no, they're not estimating. And the main difference that I like how the Shape Up book says about the difference between estimation and appetite is, estimation starts with a design and ends with a number. For us, we start with a number and ends with a design, right? So I'm not come back with a full design to you and say, how long does it take? I'm just saying, hey, you have 6 weeks. I don't know what you can do, but you have 6 weeks. Right? It is a very different way of thinking. It is a very different way of shaping the work. So when you have, let's say, all the problems figured out and you just need to increment, yeah, the estimation tends to make more sense. But if you are just drawing something and you are just, let's say, making a Mona Lisa, I'm going to say do it, but you only have 6 weeks to finish it. So our job, I like to say to every single person that we work together, is to maximizing the rate of learning by minimizing the time of trying things. This is basically what we try to do, right? Continuously learning, but without spending too much time in being like slime mode because we don't have the, yeah, we just can't afford it. That's it. I hope you guys have questions, any feelings, and feedback. I'm here to answer.
Hello. I'll start with feelings. I'm very happy to see this, especially I think even Teresadors would be proud to see engineering using the Opportunity 3 model, so really compliments to that.
Thank you.
And yeah, question is more, you have this experimentation way of working. How did you manage to onboard the engineers in the team to start writing the bed documents?
Yeah, that's that's why it takes time, right? I think the how can I say this? honestly, everybody wants to be part of it. I don't think any engineer would say like, I don't want to write this bad document. They might not like the act of actually literally writing, but being involved, I think every engineer wants to. At Molly, we call them product engineers, right? We don't call them developers, because you are not there to write code. You are there to solve problems. And you cannot solve problems if you do not understand the problem. You cannot understand what the customer is facing. And we put the customer in the center of it. So I always start with the definition that everybody wants to do this. I get it. I myself am pretty bad at writing this document down. And that's why we do this also in a mob. So PM is writing, we are just talking, everybody is centered on this. And I think the second part is they like to feel responsible for the work that they say they can deliver, right? If I go to an engineer and I say, hey man, give me an estimation, right? And he's gonna be super, like, a bit stressed, and he's gonna be like, oh my God, I don't know how it's gonna take, my estimations are always wrong, even though if you say you're always right, you're also is wrong. So they don't like that, right? And then you say, okay, I don't care about the estimation, I don't care about the number, but we need to make sure that we get this experience right. What can we do, right? So it goes about reversing the problem, if you will, and then they basically just be part of it, because they don't like to just be throwing the problem at them. And for us, it happened actually quite easy. I think the main tends to have a problem when is this discussion between, is this incremental or is this iterative? And then, can I do, for example, one thing that I forgot to add is like, can I modernize this stack, or should I just solve the business problem and move on, right? Like, this conflict is what tends the engineer to become a bit less, how can I say, passionate about writing, because it's quite indecisive when to choose what. But the truth is, like, I don't think there is a single answer, as case by case. I think we get highly paid because we need to judge if this is a good thing or not. It's not like a just checklist. It's a bit of a convoluted answer, but I hope I answered it.
Thanks for the talk.
Yeah, yes.
It's funny that you started about getting the engineers to write the bad thing documents, because in my experience, it's not the engineers usually that's the problem to go into this thing. They want to write, they want to be part of it, just like you said. I've tried to implement Shape twice now, and it was always more of the management layers that cannot break out of the idea of a 2-week cycle. How was your experience trying to, the customer also doesn't like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it depends very much on the product, right? Like, I don't know, like, and as I said, the 6-week cycle doesn't mean that we do not bring anything in 6 weeks, right? Like, if we can deploy something and bring something to the customer in the first stage, we do it, right? Like in the week 1. I like to think that we're just descaling the problem and breaking it early as possible. And at Molly, we have this, and I've tried this before as well as a consultant. I agree with you, right? Like, if your senior managers are not open to it, the short answer is, I think it's going to be really, really, really hard. But at Molly, we work in the concept of single-threaded leadership. So you have a domain, and your domain has one person. If you can convince that person, job is done, right? So, and then the engineering managers, they are basically aside of this accountability line, and we are basically like we call craft. So we are responsible for the craft, and then you have product, and product has a craft, and data has a craft. But our domain has one accountable lead, the team has one accountable lead, and that's the line that basically can, let's say, block us to do something. And I think the main pivot moment for us was when I mentioned here in this part. Basically, you had a goal and you wanted to achieve, and the team, the senior manager would come, okay, we need to focus on this, but I don't have a front-ender in this team. Please ask the other team to help. And then you go to this team B, guys, you are the only one who has front-end expertise, can you help? And they'll say like, I don't have a problem with that. It's not my OKR, I'm not gonna do it. And then they start seeing like, okay, this is not working, right? Like, so we just also presented the problem, like, okay, how you wanna solve this? Because you don't wanna hire more people, you don't wanna have people like doing more, so then, yeah, we have to. So we literally use this presentation to influence them. And that's what triggered this.
Can I get a copy?
Sure, I have no problem. I also have the resources here, and I can definitely share with you guys. By the way, I wish those are all my ideas, but they are not. So I forgot to mention that here, but I do have a slide somewhere. Yes. So all the resources are here. Thinking in bets, the holistic product scope. So if you read all of them, of course, you can make your own story. And I think the story also has to make sense to your environment, right? For us, this story was tailored by the things that I noticed that didn't really make them click. But I would say it definitely starts with the language. If you can already manage to start talking with bad, with uncertainty, it's not about when you get an estimation, you get a fixed number, but you get a range and a probabilistic result that if this is going to work or not. I think the shape up will make more sense because the shape up is basically the opposite, right? Like there is no guarantee. And I think the language thing was a take for us.
Thank you.
So what does this do with people? Because I think it's highly motivated, right? If you have a very limited amount of time to actually show what you can, which sounds very, very appealing to me.
Yeah.
Is there also a downside to that? That people can't stop doing?
Can stop doing what you mean by that?
You just want to continue working on it for 16 days, 16 hours a week, a day.
Yeah, so what happens to people, right? So at first, they all said, it makes sense. I mean, like, it just makes sense. I don't know why we do different. I don't know why we try to, we estimate, do story points and put something in 2 weeks and like doing this fight that we never win. Nobody is happy. Everybody is struggling. If you ask an engineer, he's not happy. If you ask a product, he's not happy. If you ask the manager, he's not happy. So when he came with that story, they were like, logical. The part that we noticed that became quite complicated was that we still have 5 teams on the same goals, right? How do you keep them in sync? How do you keep these goals like not colliding? And we also have this philosophy that we all share the same code base, right? Like you do not own a code base. Everybody can go there and touch your code and change your code and it's fine, right? So this is what the part that became a bit tricky, and we are experimenting on how to solve this. And now because we have small models, we are doing rotations between people. So we are all in each other's way because we just cannot avoid it. So we said like, okay, why don't we just double down and make it extremely painful, then we just keep making it better. The motivation definitely went up. We hired 5 new people where they are all like already super happy with it. Product people are super happy with it because for the first time they can level up with the engineers, and engineers can learn to become a bit more like a focus on opportunity and discussing things that are not technical. So these bad documents, they have zero, I'm going to move this class to this, connect this database with that, right? It's literally an opportunity based on the customer. What else can I say about this? The main is still the same, the conflicts of knowing, is this iterative, is this incremental, is this just work that I need to do? Why are you, some people said that like, why are you faking out this is a bet? This is not a bet, it's just work. Like, why are you calling this a bet? So this we still have from time to time when we realize like, oh, is this really a bet? So it's also part of the learning, but so far I'm quite happy. We haven't heard anything or complaints about this.
So I'm curious about the process of writing a bet, because obviously if someone might sort of say, we change the whole website and it will increase conversion. But forward thinking, people are still estimating, no, we can never fit that in 6 weeks. So you then bet something a little bit more conservative. Let's change the header. So there's still an estimation because people don't want to write off 6 weeks without a fighting chance of proving something. So I think the onus of estimating gets a little bit hidden in a natural language, which is a bet. Am I reading this completely wrong? Or?
Not completely, but there is a bit of a difference, right? Because, for example, the way how you phrase it, as I said, like the estimation, there is a design searching for a number. So when you say change the whole website, there is a design, right? And we approach from the other angle. We approach from, there is an opportunity. What is the opportunity? If you say the opportunity is customers from the Netherlands, they can convert 2% better. Okay, how can we validate that? That's the case. One of the hypotheses would be, well, our website is slow, or our website is not clear enough, or our website is not translated in Dutch, right? And then based on that, you go on to say your validations, potential hypothesis, and then you will say, in 6 weeks, what can I validate? And then you're going to say, oh, let's say assume that the whole website is a thing. And then you're going to say, yeah, I don't think we can do it. But do we need to do the whole website? Can we just do the landing page and prove that that works? So the difference is we go from the opportunity approach, and then might be that that's one of the solutions, and not the other way around. Does it make sense? It's quite nuanced.
Yeah, no, I think once you do this a few times, you kind of naturally start writing it in a actionable enough way that's not too optimistic or pessimistic.
Yeah, we still make mistakes.
Yeah,
we still sometimes do not finish in time. And then the question becomes like, okay, what do we do now? Do we the cool down? And then we just go with it. Sometimes we make that choice that bite us back because then we didn't fix the security problems, and then those security problems comes back to us. And sometimes we just try to do the process the way how we think, like, okay, sure, we reinvest on this experience or not. And then you go again for the betting with your document and with your learners, right? Because the point is, we are learning. There is no guarantee that what we're doing is going to work. And then we basically present like, okay, and it happens already, like we presented 4 bets, and our senior team basically said that's just not good enough. If I would have the money, I would walk away and shop somewhere else, because all this is just not good enough. And sometimes we get not good enough. And another thing that we make the mistake with data is like, oh, we want to increase conversion by whatever percent. And then if you say, going from 50 to 55 or 90 to 95 sounds amazing, but if you look at the real number, sometimes it's 30 people a year. Like, does it really make sense? And we calculate about 30,000 euros a week for a team. So if you're talking about 6 weeks, it's 180K that you are investing for 30 merchants a year. Like, the math just doesn't add up. It doesn't really matter the effort, right? So that also helped to have this discussion. Yeah. Thanks.
How do you ensure code quality, and how do you handle technical debt?
Like every other company, we don't. I think this is part of the engineering manager craft, we call, right? So I would say this problem of technical debt, how we handle it, it's pretty much outside of this framework, if you will. The way how we say it is always the same. I think you guys probably advocate Boy Scout rules, right? You touch it, make it better. If you're gonna basically, we say like, if it's a head change, you know, it's a very simple thing to do. Doesn't cost a lot of time, a lot of money. Just do it. If it is like, say, haircut, it's gonna take a month to fix it. Well, maybe discuss with somebody. Let's evaluate which phase you are on the batch. If it is a tattoo that is going to cost you a lot of money, a lot of time, then we have processes for that, where we have our design staff engineers, and they try to guarantee the long-term North Star architecture that we have. But I would say the struggle is always the same. Every single batch, we are now in a transition between moving from PHP to Java, from a monolith to microservice. And every single batch, we have this discussion, right? Like, shall we modernize it? Or shall we just go to the old, make it work? So some batch, we basically do that. We descale the business problem, because it's very simple, very easy to make it happen. And then we spend the other 5 weeks modernizing, because the business can complain, the value has been delivered. And then we have 5 weeks that we invest on taking technical debt and things. And sometimes we really fail at doing that, and then we basically just make small technical debt. I wish it was a prettier answer.
All right. Well, if there are no other questions or comments, I want to thank Enrique for the great talk and great answers to the questions. Thank you all for coming over and being a great audience. We're wrapping up the session. Please stay, hang around. There's still more drinks, still more snacks. One final round of applause, I think, for